Hey everyone, we are back with an episode of Healing with Slates and Koffee. We are here to nourish, educate, and empower. We are your hosts, Toy, Nneka, and Tequoia. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
I feel like this one.
Amazing.
I feel like this is going to be a cup full today because this is a very important, sensitive topic for a lot of women. Women of all colors can relate to this actually, and it's the topic of healing through traumatic situations. We are in a society today where we learn how to self medicate ourselves, overwork ourselves, overeat, over vacation, and we're not doing the proper healing. And if we don't do the proper healing, us as creators, it's really hard for us to dive in and hone in on our purpose. What do you guys think?
I agree. There's a lot of healing work that needs to be done. Um, there's a lot of generational trauma that just gets recycled from one generation to the next. And I believe wholeheartedly that as a creative, um, we use our emotions to fuel the passion and create. And I mean, you have Vincent van Gogh and Edgar Allan Poe. They had all this trauma and they were able to create beautiful works of art. But I have to think to myself, how much more impactful could that art have been if they were able to have healed from their trauma and then create? Like it would have been a completely different project and result if they were able to find healing. And I think that we need to do the work in order to heal so that we can be our best creative and artistic selves.
Absolutely.
Um, don't remember what year this was, but it was when I was in school. I had a professor who he was our directing professor, and he was saying that, it's well, first of all, he had us do this exercise where we each were assigned a different director, technically from the past, like 90s and beyond, some early 2000s, and go into their life history. And a good number of them had a pretty had some trauma that they had dealt with that we were learning about. And he mentioned that for us in our own path of creativity and producing, that it's important to be at a good place by the time you're sharing that trauma with others. Because otherwise it's just going to well, at least there's the capability of it. How do I word it? I won't want to mess up the words he gave us, but essentially he was saying that if we're not in a good place while we're sharing it, it can still do something to us and it might not be positive. If we're not fully healed, as we're saying here, then it can still affect us in negative ways. And we can't really tell a story in full if we don't even know how it turns out. How can we share it with others? I do still think you can share it, but maybe it's just better to just have that full circle and knowing that you've grown from it so that you can also share that um, conclusion as well as a part of your story. And maybe not a conclusion. Some things are cyclical, but just knowing how you made it through and how you're continuing to deal with it, if that's the situation as well.
Absolutely. We have a very important guest today that I'm actually excited to hear her story and to hear her opinion on when it comes to healing. Her name is Aisha. We welcome her.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi.
there she goes. Hi, we
Thank
welcome
you.
you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. Um, I shared with my colleagues how we were able to connect and how you are helping me with my story. And I also shared with them that you had such a warm and, you know, it was such a positive energy about you. And you shared a little bit about your backstory, but I felt that our audience could benefit from just hearing your perspective. Um, I may have to switch to my computer in a second, but uh, I wanted you to come on because we're talking about healing tonight and how important it is for us as creatives and artists to find healing in our traumas so that we can better articulate our art and other people can find help that they need and just respond positively to it, but we have to find that healing first within us. So I wanted to bring you on so that you could just talk to us, talk to our audience about how you found healing and how that served your art so that you could help your audience.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. First, let me just say thank you. Um, it's been a long process for me. I started a healing process maybe 10, 12 years ago. And that was when I lost my children because I was in a really bad relationship. Um, and I spent a lot of time by myself. I spent a lot of time with God. And I was before that point in my life, it wasn't really tumultuous, but emotionally and mentally it was because I really didn't have a fallback. And so after that, the only thing when I was by myself, though, I learned how to depend on myself. I learned how to cry through things. I learned how to just be okay with sitting in a space where I didn't have anybody to lean on. I didn't have anybody to um, not necessarily coddle me, but I didn't have anybody to talk to, anybody who really cared about me. So when you find yourself in a state like that, it kind of you shouldn't really build up walls around your heart or whatever. But I think for me, it was very necessary because I was in a perpetual kind of state where I was looking for help through other people and not within myself. And so when God actually put me in a place where I didn't have anybody to do that but him, you know what I mean? Like then that's where I started painting more. I started figuring out what I liked instead of what other people may like. I started to focus more on myself. And then when I realized that I could do it by myself, like when other things came up in my life, like going through another divorce, it was just a situation where I was able to completely use the pain that I was feeling in a way that propelled me forward to reach my goals and really kind of hit them extra hard for me, and then I started to do a lot more things just for myself, and it sounds selfish, but it should be kind of especially if you have spent your whole life looking for others because of whatever issues, abandonment issues, emotional scars, mental scars, stuff like that. The answer really is within yourself. And I think that's the most important thing, is just finding that healing within self to actually, not keep yourself safe, I feel like, but it definitely kept me safe because now I know how to handle situations, heartbreaks, and, not necessarily to shut myself down where I don't really love anymore, even in a romantic setting or whatever, but it's definitely a situation where, you know, it's it's helped me, creatively, it's helped me um just be better for myself, I think. Um, and I think that's important for others to know as well.
How has it helped you creatively?
Creatively, well, again, I think I used to do my artwork, and then I'm a painter before I'm a photographer, editor, anything technical, because I just finished my bachelor's degree for digital media. So beforehand, the only thing I was doing was hand painting. That's where my artwork started. And before it was kind of like, well, let me try to paint things or do creative things that may be appealing to others. And it was always a miss because it was never from the heart. It was never, it was another sense of people pleasing. I feel like the way I was handling my artistic capabilities before. And so now when you really let go and you allow yourself to be, who you are, it's just, I think I posted today some Converse that I painted with Miss Pac-Man on it. You know what I mean? And it's random and trivial, but it's something I liked and it doesn't matter. So creatively, I would say that I've just been able to let loose a little bit more, and find myself, I guess, produce things that I like, no matter what I think, anybody else would feel about it. And owning it, you know what I mean? Being able to stand and say that this is what I like and this is what I'm putting out. This is how, I feel about certain things, and this is how I want to express it regardless of what anybody else thinks. And that's the part right there. Worrying what other people think is what I needed to let go of. So I definitely approach my art, whether it's photography, painting, editing, whatever I do now, is just kind of like I have to feel it within myself before, obviously if it's for other people, yeah, you keep them in the loop, but it's always from a place where it's just me and I'm not really worried about anybody else. And I had to get to that point because before I was only worried about other people and not myself. Yeah.
So, you started off painting. Did the healing that you received, did that allow you to want to expand into digital design and graphic arts and editing? Did you always have that desire, but you never really felt secure enough to try something new? Or is that something that after you started your healing work, you decided, okay, I want to try something else?
Yeah, so I grew up a military brat and I used to watch movies all the time. And so movies are like my home, you know what I mean? Like it's my favorite art form, but I never was able to get into it because I didn't have, I was a kid. And my mom was in the military. So she really didn't have time to, do the things that, um, you know, I guess dance mom stuff. That's what I would call it. But so I had to just do what I could, which was, be creative on my own. I think I got grounded one year when I was 12 and I just started drawing the Disney boxes and I didn't realize that I had this capability. So there was that, but again, it's all I had. So I could only depend on myself at that point, but I couldn't get very far because I was a kid. So after I got married and had my kids, and then my whole life fell apart. And I came home, I was just painting. And again, I was painting for other people and they were paying me to make these paintings. And, then they weren't happy with the results. And it was just kind of, so I got married again and my spouse, that just wasn't working out either. And that was literally a year in. And so that's when I was like, I'm going to go ahead and get my bachelor's degree in digital media, which is all they have at FSCJ. I would have done a film program if they had that, but I didn't, they didn't have it. So the digital media was the closest thing to my hand artwork, as well as, film photography, stuff like that could be incorporated. So I basically got my degree not in spite of, but because my marriage was falling apart, and then literally had to finish my schooling and work through a divorce at the same time. But I did it. So pretty proud of myself for that. Yeah, because it was hard. It really was. So
I feel like some people, it's destined that we go through some pain and struggle, no matter how you navigate, because it's like our gifts that are implanted by God are in us so we can shine light on those millions of people that don't have a voice, do not know how to communicate. Like you created painting and your artist through digital.
yeah.
You can take Tequoia's work, and as you're editing, you can create it and you're honing in on your gift. And she's like, I thought I was going, but you took it to a whole nother level because the light inside of you. And I think the human race messes up sometimes a percentage. We stop healing and we sink into these dark places. And we don't know that if we keep going, we can continue to heal and be elevated and promoted to higher levels of our talents and our gifts. So it seemed like the trauma you had, you didn't create it. You're like, I didn't expect this. But through grace, you were brought out of it. Now you can tell your story to those people in dark places, and it can translate through your gifts.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I do. I just, I don't think, and this is where I had a lot of trouble with that in and of itself. It's hard not to become bitter in the process. I've been dealing with these issues since I'm a small child, and I'm 40. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, almost like Sarah in the Bible waiting for her baby, and she finally got her baby when she was old, you know what I mean? And she was grateful. Sometimes that's how I feel. It's like, Aisha, just, you know what I mean? Just don't be a shitty person because somebody was, shitty to you, you know what I mean? And continually. And it's been hard. When I was in prison, I used to make artwork for other inmates for stamps, just so I could, build my stamp so that I could write my friend who is, away from me. But I upset all the other people who were just tracing things and making things because they were charging the other inmates so much money. So now they're mad at me because my work is, what everybody wants, but I'm selling it for so cheap that, I'm stealing everybody's thunder. So it's just kind of like, now everybody's upset with me. But at the same time, I'm just trying to send a letter to my friend. You know what I mean? And so, people take advantage of you. I've always been the person who has been just not naive, but naive. And then even I think I was telling this to Koya that even when I know, you know what I mean, that people are not genuine to me, or in the past, I would know that people are not genuine and I would still handle them, how I would want to be treated, and even knowing that they're disingenuous just because, I would never want to treat anybody the way I'm being treated, you know what I mean? So, but at the end of it, when you reach this point in your life, you become angry, or I became angry, you know what I mean? Especially after my last divorce, it was just kind of like, I don't want to deal with anybody. You know what I mean? And that's it's almost like a breaking, so it was good. And it broke me down, but I think I'm at a very good place now, especially creatively, where I can open my mind and create the work that I want to create without worrying about, you know, who's going to say what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of confidence, and your worth and your value to get to a place from dark to light.
Yeah.
Tequoia?
I think one of, like what you said, Toy, there's continued healing. There is no such thing as being completely healed from trauma, because that would be to say that you stop living and you have healed. But there's always going to be trials and tribulations and things that, try to knock you down. You're always going to be tested as long as you live. So there's always healing work to do. And I think that people, they get set in, okay, that trauma, I've healed from that, I'm in a great place. And then something else happens, and then they allow whatever happens to them to knock them down, and then they start feeling bad about it, because they're like, well, I was in such a good place, I was healed. Like, no, you're living. Things are always going to happen. You're going to always have to learn and grow and strengthen the things that we go through. So I think that's something that we always have to remind ourselves, especially as women. Unfortunately, we live in a society that's always going to try us, and as Black women, even more so. And we need to get the healing, but continue to heal, because we need that. And by us all being creatives, we have an outlet at our disposal. We're so fortunate to be able to turn to our art, whatever that is, whether it's acting or painting or directing or writing, whatever that art is, we can use that as a tool to help us in our healing process. So I know that you said that, with your last divorce, you shut down and you just stopped. It's like you're not going to have anything to do with that. You healed from your traumas, but there's still healing to do, because you're still living, and because you're always going to meet someone that's going to try you, whether that's on a job, whether that's in your family, or the person driving next to you and don't know how to use their turn signal. There's always going to be a need for us to exercise that healing process. So you're on the right path, and you're surrounded by, beautiful light and beautiful spirits that is there to help and to give you encouragement. It's never going to stop, but as long as you reach within yourself and, seek out people who are positive and have good intentions for you, you'll never be alone at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I was just thinking, when I first started writing, it was like in my early 20s. And when I started writing scripts, my sex scenes were really raunchy. So after probably the second script, I'm like, why am I going so deep? Like, where's all this aggression coming from? But in my 40s, I can look back and I'm looking at my past traumatic relationships. My pain was coming out on paper. Now, to some people, raunchy sex scenes is like, yeah, it's a whole audience for that. And not knowing the writer was damaged, or she was going through some unhealed places.
Mhm.
And as we look at TV and film, we look at certain shows like, oh God, why is everybody dead in this movie? Or why is this always about sex? Or why is somebody getting killed? Or why is this writer always writing about this? It's because we don't know if those writers or producers are actually still either not healed or going through their healing process. So that's why it's important to heal from your past, because now that I've healed over those traumatic relationships over in my 20s, now I've gotten past that. Now I'm writing more about healing and how healing is ugly. So if you see a project from me, love is not always great. Love is ugly. Love is beautiful. Love is gentle, sensitive, because now I've healed or healing, going through that. Now I can display my healing journey.
And I wanted to ask, I know you said earlier you were talking about how you were mostly independent, I guess, like you were kind of relying on yourself. And I know a lot of our past discussions, we talk a lot about community. So I wanted to ask if that was something that you looked out for, that to try to find the community, or if it was hard to come by, and how did you just navigate with that?
I did. So when I came home to my family, I jumped into painting, and then I did start college then, but I started a theater program. But I was the oldest student in the program, and I was the only Black student in the program. So that was it was easy for me to fit in, but it was also hard because at the same time, being the only Black woman in a program full of white kids uh, is a challenge in and of itself. And I'm talking about through small conversations. So that was my community for about a year and a half until I started working for or I did the work that they were requesting.
Um,
I just like I said, I just felt taken advantage of. And other people did utilize my skills, and then it was almost a relearning, even though I learned how to kind of stand up for myself where I was when I came out in the world, standing up for myself within a creative community. It was hard because I was still in that people pleasing energy. So I bless you. I I did have a community, but it didn't really work out because now I'm not really so excited to work within that community anymore because again, like I said, they were taking my kindness for weakness, I feel like, and just still being in that state of mind where, I knew people were trying to take advantage of me and I just didn't kick up like I should have because I never wanted to seem like a jerk, you know what I mean? You don't ever want to, you don't want to be, I don't want to say an asshole because I don't want to curse on this show, but I don't want to be like that, and I think it was very hard for me to find the middle ground and be okay with saying no to certain things. So I did have a community and I was, it's a very small community, creatively in Jacksonville. Everybody knows everybody. But when people get in their mind a certain, thinking about you, it's kind of hard to overcome that, I feel like. So that's why right now I'm just kind of, doing my own thing. I don't work there anymore. I work for someone else. And I think my marriage kind of pulled me out of that. And then after I left the marriage, I had to jump back in, but I had to jump back in a capacity, in a different mental state. And so that's where I'm at right now.
I know you see, I'm kind of crazy looking right now. And then I noticed Slates and Koffee is completely turned around.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, because my phone died, so I had to switch on the laptop. But um, so now you are editing for films, and you're taking on a different task that's um exciting for you. You told me that you love editing. So what is it about editing that you enjoy or may even find therapeutic? Because I absolutely hate editing. I I hate turning on uh any of the softwares. I cringe at looking at timelines and everything. So it always I'm always interested to hear what it is that you editors like about the editing process, and how does it help you, I guess, therapeutically?
I well, I don't really like monotonous stuff, but I feel it's another form of building a piece of work for me. Like I said, I always been an artistic painter, and so when I started editing photos, it was almost the same thing. I had to get my mind around the systems, but I just feel with films it's different because, like I said, movies are like my thing. I could spend all day watching them, and it just makes me feel like I'm a part of the creative process of making these. You know what I mean? Like making just kind of being in the mix in regards to film. I think it has always been able to reach me, especially a good project. You know, if it touches my heart, or if I react in a certain way, then the creators have done their job. And I just I think it's so cool to be able to be part of that process. It's just fulfilling to me on a deep level, just to be in the mix, in regards to making films, or editing films. But I just, like I said, you don't have to move around much, but it's still a part of being part of being part of the process, the filmmaking process. Um, and I just feel like that's where I fit in, just because I like things to look pretty, and I like making things look pretty. So I think that's why I like it so much. um, and I'm that movie watcher where if I'm the I'm the audience member who sees the boom mic, or I'm the audience member who sees, well, that wasn't there before, or they should have went back and did this. I'm always critiquing movies, and um, doing little things like that when I really shouldn't. Sometimes I should just be enjoying the film, but I do get technical sometimes. But I can't help it. So I think that's another reason why I like to edit.
It's literally your gift. You have that eye specifically for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just love it.
I think that's amazing. I mean, it helps out the producers and the directors too when an editor also has a vision, because we may think, oh no, I want it to look like this, but the editor really, I just thought about this today, how the editor really puts the stamp on it, because you guys take it to a whole nother level. And when you find a good editor, it's like it gives us like a break for a minute, because it's a long process.
Yeah.
People have no idea how long the process takes to make a project, from the creative aspect to the pre-production to the production, and then you get to post. So by the time the producers and the directors get to the room with the editor, they like, look, my head hurts. These are the notes. So you find an editor that's like, whoop, wham, wham, you like, you're godsend. Because I've literally said that, like, my head hurts.
Aww. See?
Yeah.
Save the day. I mean, and that's refreshing to be able to offer some kind of relief to the director and the producer, and be like, hey, this is what I see. What do you think? You know what I mean? So And
Yeah.
then I think everybody, like movies and any project, it's such a collaborative effort, and you really get to see people's talents when, everybody's working together. And I just think it's amazing. I really do. I
Yeah.
really do. Like some of my favorites are like Sex and the City and like Game of Thrones. Um, just where you can really feel the spirit of everybody's collective effort come through. I think that is the definition of a successful project. I do. Yeah.
Well, I am so glad that we met you. I
Oh,
know
yeah.
I will be getting your contact from Tequoia because when you meet purposeful, God-given talented, artists in this industry, you gotta connect with them because it is hard. A lot of people are coming in, it's for the money, and you don't want to shine on nobody. That's what you do. That's what you do. But if you're a purposeful artist, Sequoia, you're a purposeful artist, you would like to work ideally with other purposeful artists. So,
Yeah.
this has been truly amazing. I know the audience is going to be healed from hearing this because not many of these conversations are held in this room. So we are grateful. I don't know how, like, we are really grateful to have had you this last minute. So last minute. We honor you. We thank you again. Yes, like Tequoia said, you are surrounded by other souls around you, lifting you up. Anything you need, I'm putting you in my Rolodex for the next
Thank
project.
you.
So thank you
Yay.
so much for your story.
Thank you for having me, Tequoia. Thank you. I've never been on a podcast before, so this is very cool. This is very cool. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me. And I really do hope that, somebody can take what I said and, just kind of apply it. Like I said, I think, like I said, that's the beginning of it when you really allow yourself to be whatever your creative space is, just be there, and you can take people with you, but as long as you're fully there, nobody else really matters, I feel like. And that's what I've learned. So thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your stories with us.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
And what is your IG handle before we all depart?
My Instagram is AM Burns Fine Art. So
AM Burns Fine Art, you guys.
Follow her.
Yes. Like, follow, all that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, that was such an amazing conversation we had.
I think it was the deepest one that we've had yet.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
Very important.
why very important is because this industry is a dark industry. Just like if you're, going to any really money-driven industry, it can be very, very dark. And a lot of us can lose ourselves if we're not grounded or balanced. And if you come in there unhealed, you be basically somebody's boy toy or girl toy or somebody's toy. The Me Too movement has done a lot, but there's a lot of other people that are getting even more lost with being unhealed. So this was very significant and just mind-blowing. And I really feel needed to be said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. And I'm glad that, she was able to come on and share, she was very raw with us. And that vulnerability, I think people hide behind their strength, and that prevents them from being healed. You have to break down those barriers, break down that wall so that you can get the healing that you need. And her being as vulnerable and raw with us, I think that's going to inspire other people who hear her to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of, we come from a generation of people that say what goes in this house stays on in this house.
Exactly.
So there are a lot of things that have happened in our family line that are not talked about. And we carry that on in our adulthood, and it spews off into our new generation, and it spews off into our workplaces. So it's time. We are a community, Slates and Koffee, and it's time to build awareness around those things. Heal our fellow colored women in this industry, because we are a generation of women who carry the weight on our backs, and it's time to release.
Right. Let it
So
go.
it's another Slates and Koffee, you guys. We again are at Slates and Koffee on all social media platforms. This has been the healing process. The healing process starts now. Take a seat, take a sip, and come on back.